We are now facing more challenges in 2023.
Yes, that's
in
true.
terms of economy and also
definitely.
security, like global condition at the moment, let alone politics.
Yep.
Because we might have known and we might have heard for the past 2 years, we've been experiencing lots of fluctuations amid the whole political situation in Indonesia and also probably in the international world at the moment. But one thing for sure that has been the permanent effort that has been done in the world at the moment is to create an inclusive environment.
Yes, I agree. And in terms of health condition, we're absolutely recovering.
Exactly.
Yes.
And also, we've been seeing lots of efforts of making this world as an inclusive society, let alone not only in terms of gender roles, but also across activities or across, how do you say it, impairments. Well, you know, some of us might have experienced some speech impediment.
Yes, or speech delay when it was experienced by a child.
Exactly. Right. I mean, we got to you know, normalize everything that has seen like some abnormalities back in the past. But millions of people across the world live with hearing impairment as well. According to WHO, nearly 20% of the global population live with deafness and hearing loss.
The hearing impaired mainly depend on sign language. However, they often face problems as sign language remains relatively inaccessible and very limited, especially in Indonesia.
But amid everything, Marianne, also our viewers, there are still many initiatives that pave the way for the creation of an inclusive society, as we've been speaking for the past couple of minutes. One of them is Silang ID, an accessibility platform for the deaf community that provides sign language interpreter services.
That's really good news. Luckily, we now have with us Silang ID co-founder Bagja Prawira with his sign language interpreter here in our studio.
Yes, we might invite Bagja to the studio. Thank you so much.
Hi, Bagja. So, the way to pronounce your name is Bagja or Bagja, like the old pronunciation?
Bagja.
It's Bagja.
It's Bagja. I see.
Okay.
All right, please have a seat.
Have a seat.
First of all, Bagja, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
But thank you also for inviting me to this show today.
And this is also one of the things that we've been wanting to know about. Could you tell us what Silang ID actually is, and also what prompted you to create this platform?
So actually, Silang, the first time we mentioned Silang, there was 2 persons that are with me. The first one was Ahmad Yusuf. He is a child of deaf adult, and his mother, who were deaf, was mostly being discriminated. And then the second one was me. So with the help of Hadi, we founded Silang. We built Silang to make a purpose to help build a more inclusive community, a more inclusive society, and then to gain access for the deaf people to be empowered. And then the deaf people could be empowered through a platform which consists of sign language interpreting service, and so that I, who is a deaf person, could communicate with you two.
Wow, that's really wonderful. Yeah, and so what are the... Sorry, go on.
And with the help of interpreter, I have access. So, for example, the importance of access for me to express myself completely and then to gain information really more clearly with the sign language that are more expressive, that are being brought by interpreters.
And so what are the programs offered in Silang ID?
Oh, actually, Silang has many programs to make a more inclusive society. There are a total of 5 programs. The first one was sign language interpreting service. With the services could be in the form of video or also for an event, and then for online interpreting also, or offline meeting and offline events. And the second one, we have also what we call Bisindo workshop. It's a workshop for companies to practice sign language, Indonesian Sign Language or Bisindo. So for example, and then the third one, for example, when we Silang go into some kind of facilities, we could have an assessment if the facilities were has already inclusive or not yet inclusive. And then the fourth one would be a deaf empowerment program. So because we know that that the deaf people need more skill, and then need to upscale their skill to be accepted in companies and then in the workplace. And the last one, we also include a deaf actor or actress to join in a film, or maybe have a project to connect deaf actors to production houses so that they can make a great movie include the deaf actor or actress.
I see. That is very momentous and also quite a milestone for Indonesia at the moment. But as we go on in the modern era these days, we also see lots of cultures being unfolded. But also, we know that the Silang.id curriculum features materials on deaf culture. Now, this is very new for me. What is deaf culture, and why is it important for us to know deaf culture?
So yeah, before we get to know a language, so we also should know the native speaker that is speaking the language. And who is it? Who is the native speaker of sign language? It's deaf people. So yeah, so deaf culture means the deaf people's way of life, their way of surviving and way of living in this world. So for instance, you a hearing person will answer a call by voice calls.
Yeah.
But deaf people, we answer calls by video calls. So that's one of the examples of deaf culture.
Yeah.
Another example, for a hearing person to call someone, we oftenly call by voice. But how the deaf people call themselves? It's by name sign. We have what is called a name sign to call someone who is more specifically the person that we are going to call. Because why? In Indonesia, we have also so why the people of Indonesia should know about the deaf culture, so that they know how to communicate, how to interact with deaf people, and to know how they are living in this world, in this society, and also to further reduce the stigma that are already in everywhere.
Increase the equalization in communication, right? Yeah. So we've heard about Bisindo and CB, which are Indonesian Sign Language system. So what separates them from other sign language?
Oh, so I need to inform you that in Indonesia we only have one sign language, which is Bisindo, Bahasa Isyarat Indonesia.
So CB is not.
And then it varies from every regions in Indonesia as well.
Okay.
But CB is not a natural sign language, to be precise. So CB, it's more of a system of signs that follows the language structure of Indonesian language. But so it differs from Bisindo, because Bisindo has its own rules, set of rules set of grammar rules that doesn't follow Indonesian language structure. So yeah, that's what separates them both. So that's why CB were mostly being taught in SLB, Sekolah Luar Biasa.
Okay.
And that system is not a language. I need to further emphasize that. So if you're saying which is the more correct sign language in Indonesia, it's the answer is Bisindo all along. Because Bisindo was
So it's
the
not
native
CB.
language of deaf people.
Okay, Bisindo is the native language of deaf people. Okay, so I'm really interested on the deaf culture that we were just discussing about. Let's say, because I'm not quite familiar with deaf people because I haven't meet like a lot in my walk of life and also in my field of job. I need to know how I should communicate and how I should behave around the people with deaf impairment. I mean the hearing impairment. Let's say when I'm meeting someone deaf for the first time, we may not know how to start communicating with them. So what should I do to interact with deaf people?
So Silang has offered some tips and tricks for those situations. There are 4 simple tricks. The first one that you need to do is to be calm. Because why? Because usually when hearing people meet deaf for the first time, they started to get panicked.
Yes.
To stress a lot.
I agree.
So the first one, we need to be calm. And the second one, we need to stare. To stare at the eyes of of the deaf people, because we intently want to communicate with them. And the third one would be to ask which type of communication suits preferably to the deaf people that we are facing with.
I see.
Because there are some variation in deafness and then deaf people, because there are deaf people that loves that signs to communicate, and then there are also deaf people that who can't sign, and they preferably want to communicate with writings and then with reading the lips, and then but it's no problem. But it's okay for us to recognize that there are also deaf people that cannot use sign language also.
I see.
So yeah, that's the 4 tricks. So in the future, deaf people could educate the hearing people to use sign language and then to teach sign language to the hearing people.
Just a little additional question. If the people with hearing impairment cannot use the sign language, then what language do they use for everyday life?
For those that cannot use sign language, they use writings in their own languages, because deaf people means that they doesn't mean that they also doesn't see or doesn't have a strong visual. They have a strong visual, so they use writings instead of sign language.
So sign language is different from the writing language, and also it's another thing to learn. So it is very interesting for me to learn new walk of life that we stumble upon like each and every day, because it's good that we ask, because we only afraid of things that we don't know. So it's better for us to know. Bagja will still be with us, and See the Stories will continue after the break. Don't go anywhere.